Welcome to Around the Weird. Here's your host, the museum curator of the strange and unusual, Mr. Nothing.
Thank you, mysterious voice, and welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all the unusual and out of the ordinary literature that I've found in my travels. And today I have something that is quite unusual. Today I am talking about a short story because it is Short Story Tuesday, and this short story focuses on time travel and human bones and whatnot. I am referring to The Skull by Philip K. Dick, which was published in 1952. For those who don't know, and I've talked about Philip K. Dick on this channel before, so I don't need to go into that great of detail, but Philip K. Dick was an author who lived throughout the 1900s. He was known for writing science fiction and a little bit of fantasy, writing a couple of books here and there, but mostly writing short stories and pulpy kind of fiction. And this short story comes from his collection called If, which I've talked about a couple other stories from this collection, and a couple of other short stories, including We Can Remember It For You Wholesale and The Adjustment Bureau, both of which are pretty solid short stories. And Philip K. Dick has been regarded as one of the most sort of influential figures in science fiction, both in terms of the fact that a lot of his works were adapted into movies, and in terms of the fact that a lot of science fiction has built upon what he built originally in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. Pretty interesting author also, in my opinion. And so without further ado, let's talk about The Skull. I will do a summary, a little bit of analysis, and we'll move on from there. So The Skull focuses on a man named Conger. He is in prison for something related to assassinations, based on what we learn in the story. And he is summoned by a mysterious council in the future to kill somebody. Specifically, one man asks if he is able to kill a founder of a church that sort of like is enmeshed in society, because in this future there is no war because of the teachings of the church, but at the same time they also hold society back. And as this man says, in the future, like, war is kind of necessary to cool the weak and also to sort of get rid of some of the lower rungs of society in favor of the intelligent people. Very fascist way of thinking, and I can't tell if Dick is calling attention to this or if he actually believes in this, but that's another question entirely. But Conger is tasked with killing this founder who lived in the 1950s. And spoke for a little bit, and that seemed to influence a lot of people before he was taken to jail and later killed for what he was saying to those people. Unfortunately, all Conger is given is a skull because not much other information is known about this man. And he's also given a cage in which he can time travel throughout the 50s in order to get back there and identify this person. And so one of the first things he does is time travels to the future, at least where after this guy was killed, looks it up in a couple of newspapers and whatnot, and eventually learns the exact date that this mysterious man was killed. And as he's leaving this sort of newspaper library place, a local looks at him pretty strangely, and a couple people try to follow him, but he's able to get back into the cage and travel back again to the exact date that was mentioned in the newspapers. Of course, the locals mistrust him at this time. Some of them ask if he's if he's a Russian of some sort, because communism is a big deal here in the 1950s, and he has to sway their fears, but he's also from the future and he has a weird way of talking, so not many people trust him. And he thinks he's somewhere close to finding this person, but then he learns from a local that the police are looking for him, as they believe he might have a bomb based on some of the technology he has, and they also view him as a communist who needs to be taken in for treason or whatnot. And it's at this point that Conger takes a look at the skull and finally realizes that this is his skull. Like, he recognizes it from the teeth and everything like that, and he kind of chuckles to himself, knowing that he's going to die here, that this is his fate, but also he's destined to live because, according to the mythology of this religion, they would later see this mysterious founder alive a couple months later, and that's what happened with those people who stared at him after he came out of the library. It turns out that he kind of sort of founded this religion, and he's kind of resigned to this as the police finally catch up to him and prepare to arrest him. And as the story comes to a close, he gives a speech, much like it was said that the founder gave a speech, where he talks about his fate and also a paradox taking place. And it's presumed that the church is founded at this point again, and that's where the story comes to an end. In terms of analysis, there is a little bit we're talking about with the skull. One of the major themes, the major idea of this story is that of a time travel paradox. Dick presents the story of a man who becomes the person he was hunting. That doesn't seem to be a case where he killed someone and then had to take their position, as you see with some time travel stories, but rather this Conger was the man all along. He is the founder of the church. He gives the speech at the end of the story, but also he laughs because even though he's going to die, he will live, both through this resurrection that happened earlier in his past, but seemingly later in everyone else's timeline. But also he'll live because his message, his sort of legend will carry on, and found this religion and apparently lead to a future with no war, but also with low valuation in science and whatnot. Although the world does still seem to value medicine, so it can't be that much of a dystopia. And so it's a very interesting sort of time paradox, because if Conger had never traveled back in time, there would be no man to create this future. And so was there ever really, like, where is the start point of this church founding? It completely relies on someone creating this sort of paradox. It's a bit of an interesting head scratcher, and in that way, it's pretty similar to All You Zombies by Robert Heinlein, which I've actually read for this channel before. Very solid short story. But whereas that person is kind of caught in a closed loop, this person is much more influential in their story, and I think they're both similar ideas, but how they're expressed is quite different. And I do have a question about this. Like, at the beginning, the council wants him to go back in time, but did they tell him a lie in order to get him to go back? Like, all you have to do is hunt this person and that's it. Maybe the council, even though they say they don't want this future to happen, actually know that the only way in order to do that is to rely on Conger. Or maybe not even rely on Conger, like just get somebody to fill the role of this mysterious founder and allow this future to happen. Otherwise, you create a sort of weird time paradox that destroys the fabric of reality. Of course, Dick doesn't go into detail here, doesn't really touch upon the what comes after, or what the council's goals were, but I have a feeling if you elaborated on this story or fleshed it out a little bit more, you could create quite an interesting sort of aspect of that, maybe with Conger trying to run from this fate that he was destined for. Of course, that relies on Dick, writing a little bit more there. Dick also touches on small-town paranoia. Dick pairs his story with the fears of the Red Scare, something that was affecting media all around in the 1950s because, we don't want Russia to infiltrate the United States, and anyone who is a communist isn't loyal to the capitalist America, and that ruined quite a few careers, ruined quite a few, actors, writers, and all of those things. Even though there is nothing inherently wrong with communism, it's just who's in power. But there was a Cold War going on at the time. So in sort of making this story take place in a small town, he's able to sort of explore a little bit about that. Not to the best that it could be, but a little bit that makes this story a little bit more interesting. Like this friendly small town where everyone seems to know each other and these people should be friends are coming apart due to xenophobia, due to this fear of the communist outsider coming in, even though that wasn't really happening. Even the communist outsider wouldn't infiltrate like a small town, like they'd be spying on government officials, people of real power, so that they could affect them or at least gather information from them. So the people of the time were kind of in this mindset that there was this great threat coming when in reality there probably wasn't. But ultimately, I do think that maybe the founder is right, although the council is very much opposed to him. Like, the founder ultimately believed that war was bad, that, being so ingrained with science and technology was bad because it was just leading to more wars, nuclear bombs, various types of weaponry and whatnot. And it was hurting our community. A large part of what the founder talked about was being connected with each other and focusing on that rather than science, technology, and all sorts of things like that. And maybe that's why he was targeted. So maybe ultimately the founder is correct, and that's why the council doesn't like it, because all the power is vested in a church that doesn't want to really abuse that power, they view like this as a threat to any remnant of capitalism or sort of like fascist authoritarianism that they might want to keep going. So that's sort of an interesting element that Dick touches upon but doesn't really go into more detail about. The only thing worth noting that I don't really like about this story is it does feel kind of predictable. I kind of guessed at the beginning, it's going to turn out that Conger is this founder the whole time, and indeed that was true. I feel like that's a theme that shows up pretty frequently in science fiction. Maybe it's the case that Dick was one of the first people to really do that, and so he can be forgiven. But still, given that so many science fiction short stories, especially about time travel, deal with someone kind of becoming the thing they were originally meant to stop, it feels like it makes time travel stories feel kind of stale because you're getting the same thing really out of all of them. So maybe not so bad here and enough to sink the story, but if I encounter any more of these in the future, it's definitely something that I'm going to have to bring up more and more, just noting the stale feeling that time travel stories can bring. Anyway, those are my thoughts on The Skull by Philip K. Dick. A pretty high quality short story, especially if you enjoy stories about science fiction, time travel, those kinds of short stories. You might find some joy in this, so I definitely recommend that you go seek this out if you can find it. And of course, read some of Philip K. Dick's other short stories because he is a very talented writer. If you have any thoughts on this, or you simply want to comment on my review here, do so below. Would love to hear from you. Otherwise, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that more people can find out about this author if they don't already know about him or this short story. Also join the Discord if you want to have other conversations about media, books, movies, that kind of stuff. And until then, I wish you the best of luck in your weird and time-traveling travels. Farewell.